You ever had someone threaten to have your family arrested for fishing on your own damn lake? 3 days after she pulled that stunt, I handed her an eviction notice for the house she'd lived in for 12 years. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Picture this. Dawn in northern Michigan. Mist rolling off water, so clear it looks fake. My 9-year-old daughter Zoe's clutching her fishing rod, looking at me like I can explain the world, even though I'm just as confused as she is. Then here comes a sheriff's cruiser, tires crunching up my gravel driveway, and there's Darlene. Crestwood, 58, bleached highlights, draped head to toe in Ralph Lauren, standing on her perfect lawn, pointing at us like we're criminals. All because we dared to fish on our own property. Now, Darlene, she didn't know she was playing chess with someone who already owned the board. For 8 years, she'd been running a fake HOA, collecting $34,000 in fees from neighbors, thinking nobody would look too close. What she didn't know? I owned the roads to 6 houses on the street, including hers. But, let me back up a sec, 'cause I can see you're wondering what the hell I did to end up here. My name's Marcus Whitfield. I'm 43, used to be a commercial real estate analyst before I sold my consulting firm and semi-retired. Got divorced. Recently, nothing messy, joint custody of Zoe, pretty amicable as those things go. I moved to Lake Harmon, Michigan, thinking, yeah, maybe this is the simpler life. Population, 3,200. Bought this 1970s ranch on Lakeshore Drive for $340,000. Needed work, but man, 200 feet of water frontage. First time I walked through, the place smelled like pine cleaner and old carpet. But you step out on the back deck, the mist coming off the lake, tastes clean, metallic, felt like home right away. Thing is, I grew up working class Detroit. Dad was a union electrician, taught me how to read contracts, hunt for the fine print. Built my whole career off spotting what everyone else missed. I bought this place sight unseen, in the middle of that post-divorce fog. The realtor, a guy named Earl, mentioned something about quirky neighborhood politics. I just waved it off. How bad could it be? Well, Zoe took to the lake instantly. It was the only thing holding us steady through the mess of joint custody and new routines. First few weeks, I'm fixing up the place, replacing dock boards, patching the roof, inhaling tar fumes, getting splinters, and feeling like a real dad again. That's when I met Darlene Crestwood, self-appointed president of something called the Lake Harmon Shores Preservation Committee. Her husband Roland runs the local insurance agency, and together, they're basically small-town royalty. Their house, a massive Victorian Reno, almost $900,000. She drives a white Lexus with a vanity plate, LK Shore 1. Week 2. Darlene comes clicking down my dock in her heels, sharp, aggressive sound on the planks. You'll need to submit a waterfront usage application to the committee, she says, all smiles. They manage lake access to protect property values. She hands me a 3-page form, $500 annual maintenance fee, rules about dock colors, boat sizes, and guest limits. I say, no thanks. This is a public lake. I own my shoreline. Her smile froze so hard I thought her face might crack. Suddenly, the air's thick with her perfume, some kind of chemical gardenia. She goes, everyone who matters participates. You'll regret making waves. Now, a sane person would have let it go, but I know better. Pulled up the county records that night. Found nothing about an HOA. Called Earl. Oh yeah, that's just Darlene's thing. Most folks pay to avoid the hassle. My gut said something stunk, but I wanted peace for Zoe, so I let it ride. Didn't take long for things to get weird. My neighbor Betty, retired teacher, 71, dropped by with cookies. She glanced toward Darlene's place and whispered, she doesn't handle no well. I should have listened. Fast forward 3 weeks. Zoe and I are out on the dock, air crisp, coffee in my thermos, teaching her to cast. Water so quiet, you can hear the fishing line cut the air. Here comes Darlene, this time in athletic gear and a sun visor, like she's power walking to war. You're in violation of quiet hours, she announces. No waterfront activity before 9 a.m., Darlene. There's no HOA here. We're just fishing. She starts taking photos. You're disturbing the ecosystem. I'm documenting everything. Then she whips out a laminated card. Lake Harmon Covenant Rules, supposedly signed by everyone in 1987. Check your title, she tells me. Now, pro tip. Covenants have to be recorded with the county. If there's no recording number, it's toilet paper. So that Monday, I go down to the county office. Place smells like old books and musty paper. The clerk helps me pull every document for Lakeshore Drive. There's nothing. No HOA, no active covenants, nothing about fees. I write Darlene a polite letter. Per county records, no HOA exists. Please stop misrepresenting legal status. 2 days later, Roland, her husband, shows up on my porch. Smells like expensive cologne and bad intentions. The fee helps maintain neighborhood quality. Darlene's just protecting property values. Wouldn't want code enforcement noticing issues with your house. Friendly advice. He says. That night, a township inspector shows up about unpermitted dock work. Finds nothing wrong. Between you and me, he says, we get a lot of calls from Lakeshore Drive. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about power. Darlene started a whisper campaign. Betty stopped waving. I found an anonymous note. Troublemakers don't last long here. Sell now while you can. Zoe came home in tears. Her friend's mom had uninvited her from a Halloween party. She says we're problem people, Daddy. That's Darlene, running the neighborhood like a bad high school movie. So I dug deeper. Quietly asked around. Turned out 5 families had been paying Darlene fees for years. 20 grand, minimum. Why? Easier than fighting. Roland insures most of their homes. Implied threats everywhere. One neighbor, Greg, a plumber, pushed back once. Suddenly, his business permits got delayed. Classic extortion, dressed up as community spirit. I called the Michigan Attorney General's office. They wanted a formal complaint and evidence. I decided to crash Darlene's committee meeting. Her house, over the top, floral wallpaper, blinding chandelier. Vanilla bourbon candles. 7 neighbors sitting in those chairs that make you sit up straight. I ask, where are the incorporation papers and financial statements? Silence. Darlene calls the sheriff. Deputy pulls me aside, advises I leave. Crestwoods have a lot of pull. It hit me. The system's rigged for people like her. So, I started digging into property records. Late-night research. Old developer bankruptcy filings. Turns out, when the original developer went bust in 1993, all the private roads and common areas got sold off. Guess who inherited those assets? Me. No kidding. My dad's union pension fund bought M, and when he died, they came to me. I owned the damn roads, including the one to Darlene's house. My hands were literally shaking. I double-checked. With a title researcher friend. Yep, airtight. If I wanted, I could shut down Darlene's whole operation. Evict her for using my easement without permission. But I didn't want to be the villain. I wanted justice. So I built my case, slow and methodical. Surveyed neighbors. Anonymous, just the facts. Who paid? How much? What did they get? Added up to $34,500 over 8 years. 0 spent on actual maintenance. I brought in a lawyer, Preston Hall. Old school, no nonsense. He said, you could file criminal complaints, but if you get her to incriminate herself publicly, it's over. So I recruited Betty and the others. Showed them the receipts. Betty had paid $2,400 for promised snow removal. She and her husband did it themselves. Greg, the plumber, permits delayed as punishment. Alicia, a nurse, threatened with noise complaints if she refused to pay. Here's where the twist hit. Darlene and Roland were broke. Big house, 2-car loans, taxes overdue. Insurance agency tanking. They couldn't afford to lose the house. It was all they had. So I called a public meeting, cited Michigan nonprofit law, invited the local paper. Darlene panicked. Tried to ban me, claimed I was hostile. She even tried to get Zoe's school to flag me as an unfit parent. Yeah, that happened. School called me in. I showed the documents. Counselor sided with me. Day of the meeting, tension you could cut with a knife. Darlene staged the living room like a courtroom. 3 lawyers on her side. I walked in with my lawyer, 6 neighbors, and the Gazette. Editor. Asked Darlene, let's see the registration. Nothing. Let's see the bank records. Nothing. I projected the withdrawals. $800 a month to herself, $2,000 to a furniture store, $3. $500 to her neighbor's son for unrelated legal advice. No receipts, no oversight, embezzlement in broad daylight. Then came the kill shot. I pulled out the developer's papers. Darlene, you're using roads and easements you don't own. I do. You have 30 days to repay your neighbors. or I revoke your access." The room froze. Darlene collapsed into her chair. Roland looked like he'd seen a ghost. The sheriff walked in, saw the mess. Neighbors, lawyers, media. "Ma'am, is this true?" Darlene just sobbed. The Gazette photographer snapped a dozen shots. Darlene's empire, over. Week later, the white Lexus was gone. Darlene and Roland sold what they could, wrote certified checks with apology letters, and left town. County prosecutor charged her with fraud and embezzlement. She took a plea, got probation, and a permanent ban on forming any HOA. Roland's insurance business folded. Their mansion sold at a loss. We started over, real, transparent, voluntary. HOA, just for road maintenance. Betty got her money back, donated half to the animal shelter in her husband's memory. Greg and I became friends, started an annual block party. Zoe made new friends. Betty became her honorary grandma. And me? I started helping other people fight HOA scams, set up a website, took calls, even did pro bono work. The local newspaper ran the story, "Local Man Exposes." Neighborhood extortion went viral. People all over Reddit sharing their own HOA nightmares. My advice: document everything. Never assume the loudest voice in the room actually has power. A few months later, I got a letter from a woman in Ohio. Her HOA was foreclosing over $400 in unpaid pool fees for a pool that never got built. I smiled and picked up the phone. But that's a story for another day. So, tell me, what would you do if a Karen called the cops on your kid for fishing? Ever gone toe-to-toe with an HOA bully? Drop your story in the comments. Let's see how many of us are out there fighting the good fight. And if you want to hear how a woman outsmarted a predatory lender to save her grandma's farm, stick around. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when you know the system better than the bullies.